Welcome in, everybody, to the part one of the Week 9 preview. We're already 8 weeks done, and we just started Week 9 with our Thursday night game. The Titans and Steelers. Brian, what did you think of that game? Just a typical... I thought it was a pretty exciting game, but what did you think overall of it? Was it entertaining for you?
I think it definitely got better. I don't know. Like, it was a little slow after halftime until... It was basically the third quarter was a little slow. A lot of defense and stuff. But yeah, overall, like, I thought the ending was pretty exciting. I think Will Levis kind of looked all right at times. You know, like, I'm kind of interested to see how he does, like, in the future, because who knows if Tannehill is going to start any more games for them. It's like, you might as well see what you got. And yeah, he looked a little under pressure. We'll just say that.
Yeah, and it's almost like, I wonder if it's almost better, like if they had won this game, was there more incentive to bring back Tannehill or like start Tannehill when he's healthy? Because yeah, like you said, like Levis looked fine at times, but he looked like a rookie. But if they pulled out the win, you know, they could have. You know, I forget. I don't know what the record is off the top of my head, but they have at least 3 wins, I would think, maybe 4 if they would have won that game. And so, yeah, I don't know. It's almost like a good thing because I want to see more Levis too. That's part of the reason why I thought it was like a little exciting. Was partly because the hype of, all right, let's see Will Levis do it again type of thing. So, but he didn't, unfortunately. Tougher team, definitely. I mean, the Steelers, they're not quite the Steelers of old in terms of their defense, but they can still. TJ Watt's still there, essentially, like ruining your day.
Yeah.
So
they're 5-3 now after this. So
I know.
Yeah,
it's part of the reason why. Yeah, it's part of the reason why I picked them in this game in our pool. Is just like, this feels like a game the Steelers just kind of win, like even though they shouldn't be, and then you look at it and say, oh, they're 5-3 somehow. So yeah, they're and pretty. So many teams are like, it's weird. Like, I think fantasy's like this too. Like, kind of look across a few leagues. Like, there's not much that separates. If you look at a lot of fantasy leagues, like ours, our couple leagues we're in together, and a couple more that I'm in, like first place to 7th place, like, or 8th place. There's like basically like a couple game difference or something, like a 1 or 2 week difference of like the whole standings just kind of flipping over. So. The NFL is kind of like that too. Like a lot of teams, 3-4, 4-4, and stuff like that. So, yep, it's good parity. Go ahead.
Yeah, you kind of mentioned before we started. Najee Harris finally had a good game, his best game of the season so far. Wasn't like blow down the doors good, but he got the touchdown. He had 16 carries, 4 targets, caught 2 of them. So. Yeah, definitely makes you feel better about starting Najee. Deontay Johnson finally got his touchdown, so everyone can stop making fun of him. But, the target share is still there for him. Like, I feel like he's kind of solidified it. Like, must start number 2 receiver for the rest of the year. Barring, well, I guess I can't say rest of the year. Definitely next week.
What about Pickens? Are you worried about that? 2 targets for 5 targets, 2 catches, -1 yard.
Yeah, I don't know really what was going on there. Like, I don't watch like the all 22 film or anything afterwards. So I'd be kind of interested to see like what they were doing to like take him away, or like maybe he just didn't have time to like get into like to run his route properly. I'm not really sure, but yeah, they didn't talk about him basically the entire time because he wasn't involved really, which is kind of I did hear that I guess it was 2 weeks ago when Deontay came back, like Pickens kind of reverted back to his like basic little route tree that he was running before, and not exactly what he was doing while Deontay was out. So it's a little concerning that they're kind of going back to that well, especially if they're going to win games without him involved very much. It's like, that doesn't look good kind of a thing. It's like, why do they need to get him more involved if they're winning?
Yeah. I mean, now, yeah, we're looking at since Deontay's come back, and that first game Deontay didn't even play the whole game. It was like I think 70% of the snaps, but 18 targets in 3 games is not great. It's not terrible, but it's not great. So 10 over the last 2 games, and only 2 catches over the last 2 games. So
yeah,
that's a little rough for the Pickens managers for sure. But just kind of something to monitor. He's definitely not in the must start range that he was just a couple weeks ago. So it's how fast things change. Definitely.
Yeah.
But we're breaking down 4 games in today's video. Again, always half PPR, all our numbers, and we're just gonna jump right into it with the Dolphins at the Chiefs. We got the Germany game. They get a good game to watch. Maybe one of the best games. Well, hopefully it's one of the best games of the year. Over-unders at 51. Chiefs are favored by 2. First of all, who do you think wins this game? Because to me, it's just obviously it's kind of a toss-up. But any idea? Any lean towards who wins?
I definitely think it is. Obviously, it's going to be close. Ideally, like that's kind of what it seems like. But I'm leaning Dolphins just because I think their team is creative enough to overcome the Chiefs' defense, which has looked really good this year. They just run a very different kind of offense, I think. I just think Miami can pull it off.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because Miami has played 2 tough teams this year, and they lost both of those games, right? And the Bills and the Eagles, and pretty handedly too. And they got kind of shut down in those games, and they've played 3 good defenses, and if you throw the Patriots in with those 2 teams, and they've scored 24 against the Patriots, 20 against the Bills, 17 against the Eagles. So, and then they scored 31 this last week against the Patriots again, but Patriots lost 2 of their best players at that point. So it'll be interesting to see. I think it's a good measuring stick for Miami. And if they lose, a lot of people are going to be talking about, they're not for real type of thing. They're kind of frauds, so but like I mentioned to Dad last week, they are the only team this year that has beaten the teams they're supposed to beat, and comfortably done it, so every other team has either lost a game to a team they should have beaten, or they keep games close to teams they shouldn't. So Dolphins are the only team that put away the teams they should. So but on the Dolphins side, again, we're not benching any of these guys. Mostert, Tua, Hill, Waddle. I don't think you need us to tell you that. So I know Mostert had some injury stuff, but he had a practice today in which he practiced. So I'm not worried about that as of now on Thursday night. Chiefs, kind of the same. You're starting Mahomes, you're starting Pacheco at this point, you're starting Kelsey. I guess the only thing that comes into question is Rashee Rice. Where are you at with him in half PPR? I think he's a little bit better in standard and half PPR than full PPR. Do you have him as in 3 wide receiver leagues, pretty locked in as a starter, or is he kind of that fringe wide receiver 3 to you?
I'd say if you're starting 3 with a flex, it becomes way more easier of a conversation. He's still not playing a ton of snaps, basically the last 2 games at 60%. So he's working his way up there for sure. We're still kind of on the right side of the trend. It's just tough with these Chiefs receivers. It's you just never really know. So I definitely wouldn't say locked in, but low end flex. He plays with Mahomes, I don't know. He's kind of a touchdown or bust sort of guy right now, but I like the trend. I'd say stash more than start.
Yeah. I do give a bump up in terms of all right, this game could be a shootout, it could be a 35-34 type of game, and that favors obviously Rashee Rice catching a touchdown. He has 3 this year, so he's not obviously like a huge touchdown guy, but he should give you 4 or 5 catches, 60, 70 yards, and you need him to catch a touchdown to like be super happy. What about if you're talking about versus guys like Josh Downs, Tank Dell, Jordan Addison with a rookie throwing to him? How do you feel about Rice versus those guys in half PPR?
Yeah, I mean Addison, man, like that's going to be tough. Like, do we know for sure that it's going to be Jaren Hall this week when it comes to that game?
Pretty sure.
I'm guessing it's not Dobbs because he barely got traded a couple of days ago. So
yeah, and the only other option is well, it's not an option. Nick Mullins, but he's on. I think he's on IR till week 10. So they came out as soon as they traded for Dobbs. They came out like Tuesday afternoon or evening, and or maybe it was yesterday morning. They said that Jaren Hall is going to start. So
yeah. So yeah, you mentioned Josh Downs. I didn't get to watch that game this last week. I just pulled it up real quick, and it's like, yeah, no, he's still getting a decent target share. Yeah, I don't know. I think he's kind of like I would start him over Rashee Rice. Who are some of the other guys you mentioned?
Addison, Downs, Tank Dell versus Tampa Bay.
Yeah,
hasn't really had a good game since his big breakout game. He was injured one game. He knocked out early, missed a game, came back last week, and they just their whole offense, passing offense, did nothing.
Right. Yeah, no, I think I'd still start Rice there. Like the Addison one's interesting. I'd probably still start Addison over Rice because like he's the obvious number one. I feel like without Justin Jefferson there. So, but yeah, you definitely have to be a little worried.
Christian Watson, Michael Thomas, Marquise Brown. How you feeling with those guys versus Rice?
I'll start Marquise Brown. Not Michael
even
Thomas.
With Clayton Tune, same. That's the problem with all these matchups. It's like there's all these rookie quarterbacks like Clayton Tune. I think is going to be starting.
Yeah, I'm just not fully sure or convinced. I guess that Watson is the dude, like
Christian Watson,
Green Bay. Christian Watson. Yeah,
I agree. With
that. They still haven't really connected. Like he's playing 80+% of snaps his last 3 games. He's getting targeted, but they're still not quite on the same page. Like the whole Green Bay offense is kind of sputtering right now, but I mean, who knows how much they have to throw against the Rams to keep up without Stafford. So I'm really not sure there.
Yeah, Michael Thomas is the safest player in fantasy football as well. Like if you need 8 to 9 half PPR points guaranteed, you start Michael Thomas, and if he catches a touchdown, you're happy. But if he doesn't, you're okay because he still gives you 8 points. Like it's literally every week that's what he's done, except for his 1 touchdown week is where he had double-digit points. So, it's just kind of upside Rice. I want to start Rice over Watson. Marquise Brown, I'll still lean Marquise Brown, even though it's Clayton Tune versus Cleveland, which scares me a bit. But actually, I think I'd go Rashee Rice just for that reason. Like that team just could get absolutely demolished. Like again, I think it's another one of those. Like, okay, I could see a safe 8-9 points from Marquise Brown, but I don't see much upside. So I guess it depends on what you need. But yeah, if you can pivot, he's a low end wide receiver 3 for me, I'd say. Like you mentioned, touchdown, kind of almost like a touchdown, not bust, but like a touchdown. What's another? How else can we rephrase it? Like a touchdown
dependent.
Yeah, it's like touchdown, or you're not happy. Like you're not sad. You're probably not gonna be sad from what you get from Rice if he doesn't get a touchdown. Like 4 for 60. It's like, okay, you still give me 8 points, but yeah, I don't know. We have to think of a better way to say that, but. Everyone else we're starting on the Chiefs. That's obvious starters. So, Vikings at Falcons is the next game. Over under of 37. We just talked about it. Vikings, Falcons are favored by 4. We just talked about it with Jaren Hall. This is an interesting one because it's like, it kind of tests your faith in some of these Vikings players. How do you feel about Madison? We'll start with Madison. He, just double checking, I don't think he's done very well the last couple games. He's had 670 total. He's had 31 yards rushing, 39 yards rushing. Nothing really in the receiving game. A catch here and there. 44 yards rushing. Man, I really want to avoid Madison if I can. Like, hasn't had a touchdown in 3 straight games. Where are you at with Alexander Madison?
Yeah, like I think given the bye weeks and stuff, like I feel like he is like a low end number 2 guy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I definitely don't want to start him. I don't know if I'm like super afraid of Atlanta's run defense. I don't know. Like I know they've been pretty good so far, but how good have they been?
Top 3. They're top 3. Yeah,
I did not know they were that good.
Yeah, so they gave up. I believe this is half PPR. They gave up 14 points to Derrick Henry last week. Almost 13 to Rachaad White. 12.5 to Brian Robinson, and then everyone else they've held under double-digit points. So, but it was Miles Sanders, AJ Dillon, Jahmyr Gibbs, ETN. They held to 8.5. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say Madison's probably pretty on par with Rachaad White and not Henry. Who was the third guy?
Brian Robinson.
Brian Robinson. Yeah, it's like he's probably kind of on par with those guys in terms of like workload and stuff. Like I know Cam Akers is eating in a little bit, but not enough to like worry me, I guess. He hasn't been involved with the passing game too much in the last couple of games. But I mean, it looks I'm just kind of looking at his target share numbers in general, and it's kind of like, it kind of like fluctuates a bit. Like at least the potential is there. I mean, he's got 4 games with 4 or more catches. So, sorry, 4 more targets.
But it is a wild card of like, how much are they going to throw? Like they could run the ball more, which maybe helps Madison. But to me, he's not a super efficient guy. Like he needs to do Rachaad White, and Rachaad White's actually been pretty good the last couple of weeks because he's getting 6 or 7 catches. It's not because of his rushing; it's because he's giving you 100 total yards, and 60% of it's coming by receiving. So I just don't know if they're going to use Madison that way. It just makes me. I get what you're saying. Like you want to, it's a bye week, 4 teams on bye, some good teams on bye, and like, I'm just looking at like the people ranked below him too. Like, okay. Like I would have started Jaylen Warren over Madison. I know it's, Thursday night. We can't really do that, but I think that would have probably paid off too. I think he got 100 total yards from Warren. So, what about like Deontay Foreman versus the Saints?
I don't know. I did not like what I saw last week from Foreman because that was one guy that we were kind of paying attention to. Me and Bree. Like we're like, all right, what's going to happen with Roschon? Like how involved is he going to be and stuff? And it was just kind of, I mean, against the Chargers too, it was kind of like, he's not like the obvious dude like leading the backfield. Like it seemed very like split up. So I don't know.
Yeah.
They're playing the Saints too, so I'm not super excited about Foreman this week. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just tough. I mean, I guess I agree. Dameon Pierce is another guy that like he's kind of in the same boat with Madison, in my opinion. Like, I'll just go whoever has the better matchup between those two. But you're probably right. He is probably like an RB2 unless you have better options at this point, just because you can probably pencil him in for double-digit carries, and there's some value there, I guess.
Yeah. 2 catches. Whatever.
Yeah. Addison, we kind of talked about it a little bit. Like he's kind of in that Rushy Rice boat. Like I'll start him over guys like Tank Dell. Josh Downs is a tough one. I probably lean Downs, honestly, like just because of the wild card of not knowing what they're going to do with the passing offense.
Yeah. I think what Addison has in his favor, I think I already mentioned it. It's like he's the obvious number one on the team,
Yeah.
He's getting the target share. So I don't know. Honestly, it very well could be a ball control sort of game without Stafford there, because I know he's not been ruled out yet, but they have their bye next week and they don't want to put him on IR. So it's not like a long-term injury, but we'll have to like kind of wait and see. Like, I think if Stafford plays, like it does kind of change the equation a little bit in Addison's favor. But I mean, he's going to be involved to some extent, like I'm just kind of looking at his stats. He's basically good for, 10 plus half PPR points in every game he's played except one. And a lot of those are in the high or mid teens to higher, I guess. So
yeah, I mean the big but is Jaren Hall. They're starting a rookie quarterback. So those are all with Kirk Cousins, who's having a top 5 fantasy season. So that's where like you can almost kind of throw it out the window like a little bit. Like I'll still start him over guys like Watson, Thomas. What about like Jahan Dotson or Demario Douglas for the Patriots? Would you start those guys? Are you going to fire up Dotson over Addison?
I don't know if I'm quite ready to do that, but it's probably pretty close. I know he had a good game this last week, man. I mean, like the Washington guys in general are just so, or I guess it kind of like, obviously everything's running through Sam Howell, and it's like, I still don't have like a good idea if I like what they're doing there or not, like it's very like up and down.
Yeah.
Hard to predict, I guess, kind of a thing, Dotson, I don't know, man.
Yeah, it's tough. It really is. I'll probably lean Addison, but yeah, that's a tough one for sure. Like, yeah, I guess I'll lean Addison there. So no one else you want to start? I mean, Hawkinson, I'm still starting. Like, he's the one guy that I'm not worried about as of now, at least. On the Falcons side of things, I mean, Bijan, you're starting. Pitts, you're starting because it's tight end, unless you kind of have someone better. But to me, he's still like a top 8, 9 tight end. Heineke's the starter. We should mention that. Heineke's starting. So do you think that helps the pass catchers in London and Pitts, or you're still kind of like, about it?
I really don't know. Like, we've seen Heineke support his main receiver before, like when he was playing with Washington with McLaurin, so I think like in addition to like other players too, like not necessarily the same guy, like, but I feel like Heineke can get it done to some extent. I don't think I'm downgrading or I think it's basically a lateral move to have London getting the ball from Heineke instead of Ritter. Like, because I mean, Ritter was not great, but I don't know. Like, he was kind of like Sam Howell in the sense where it's like, it's kind of okay, and then it's kind of not okay. Like, he never really looked as good as Sam Howell necessarily, like in the actual games he was playing. But I don't know. I just feel like I just don't know what that team's identity is. Like, they just do. Arthur Smith just does the weirdest shit. Like, I don't know what to like make of it. Like, I think you're still starting London though.
Well, the one thing, how about this? Because you might not be up to date on injury stuff back from a trip. Drake London hasn't practiced at all Wednesday or Thursday with a groin injury. Yeah. So what if he plays, goes into the game questionable and plays? Like, to me, I just want to avoid that like whole situation. Like, could be limited if he does play. Obviously, if he doesn't, it's probably better if he doesn't play, just for the sake of your sanity. But to me, like, if he does, I think I just want to avoid it altogether. Like, I don't know. Minnesota's defense is actually not that bad this year. I know they do give up points to receivers, but recently they've been shutting down some receivers. It's not the greatest guys, but San Francisco guys, the Green Bay guys, Chicago. I'm not sure if that was against Fields or not, but the Chicago guys they shut down week 6. The Chiefs guys is not really talking too much there. Even shut down freaking Adam Thielen, 11.5 points. I don't know. I don't know. Does that sway you at all? The groin injury?
Yeah, it does actually. I didn't realize that was still an issue.
Yeah.
Did he leave the game with it last week?
I think he did. Yeah. Mm-hmm. At least. Yeah.
He's only got 54% of the snaps last week.
Third quarter he left.
Okay. Yeah, no, that is concerning. Maybe they're just kind of resting him because they are leading their division.
Mm-hmm.
So they obviously have I think they're making the move to Heineke to try and keep that train rolling, kind of a thing. So yeah, I don't know. I wonder if I'm sure he's going to try and play, obviously, but. Maybe the nice thing is you can wait till tomorrow to kind of make that decision, get another practice report in, see if he gets at least a limited practice, and then I think you're kind of starting him.
If it's limited, I think I'm just out. If it's full, I'll think about it. If it's limited and he's questionable going into it, I'm just gonna avoid it. I don't want to take a 0. Re-injures it first play and he's out for the rest of the game. I really don't. Like a Josh Palmer situation last week, where he hurts his knee injury all week and then hurts it in the game. He kind of came back and played, but he just wasn't obviously himself. So that's always scary. If you have better options, if you're talking about, if you're talking about guys way down the list, like Jaden Reed or Wan'Dale Robinson or something, fine, start London. But if you have anyone like Demario Douglas, I'd start over London in that situation. Like Dotson that we talked about, I would. So, yeah, it's tough, but could be better things for Pitts. So I guess there's a positive there. Seahawks at Ravens is our next game. Over-under is 44. This is an interesting game. Ravens are favored by 6. Being at home, I think helps that. I don't know. Ravens are a tough team, man. They look like maybe the best team in the NFL, and they just demolished the Lions. And then I know the score, if you look at just the score of the Cardinals-Ravens game, I think it was 31-17 it finished that, or 31-20 or something. It was a lot closer until the fourth quarter. So it's just kind of a hard team to figure out. Lamar did not have a big game. Gus Edwards did. But we'll start with the Seahawks. Geno, I really want to avoid. Hasn't really played that well this year and is playing the Ravens, who I think are the best team against quarterbacks this year. They're definitely a top 5 team. I'm just double checking that. They are the number 1 team against quarterbacks. So they've given up over 17 points once. That was last week to Josh Dobbs. A lot of it in garbage time. Other than that, they shut down. Now, again, Stroud, his first game as a pro. Burrow when he was injured. Minshew, DTR. So that's the tough thing is Dorian Thompson-Robinson, Kenny Pickett, Malik Willis. The only real quarterback they shut down was Goff. And then Burrow, but he was injured, and Stroud first game. So where are you at with Geno Smith? Are you just trying to pivot as much as possible? Or would you start Minshew or Jordan Love over Geno Smith?
I think I would. I think I'd start both of those guys. Yeah, I don't know. Actually, I don't know. Jordan Love's probably the closest comparison. I'm thinking decently okay about Minshew this week, even though I think Carolina has a pretty bad run defense. So that's not necessarily in Minshew's wheelhouse, So yeah, I don't know. I'd like to avoid him for sure. I'm just kind of looking at the list. It's Baker Mayfield's 5 spots after him. I'd start Baker.
Yeah. Me too.
Why not?
I would too. Yeah, and it's on top of the fact that like Gino he's had one game over 17 points and 4-point for passing touchdown. And that's kind of like the threshold. You want your quarter, like you're fine with 15, 16. You want him to get 17, 18, and obviously, higher. But he's really only had one game where you felt like, all right, good about it, So, at least Jordan Love, we talk about the Packers offense. It's like, okay, like he has at least his worst game is 15.6 points, like they've come in the last 2 weeks, his two worst. Oh no, he has an 8-point game. But the problem is his last 3 games have been his 3 worst games. So I guess I'd lean Gino there, but I don't love it. I'd start Baker over him. But I wouldn't like Bryce Young. What about Bryce Young? He has a really good matchup. Would you start him over Gino?
I don't think I'm ready to do that yet, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's tough.
Yeah, even in the game they won last week, right? It's like, I just remember seeing the box score. It's like, they had like 13 points or 16 points or something.
They were in the red zone a lot and didn't score. Yeah, he only had 1 touchdown. It's so tough because again, we read off all those quarterbacks. It's like, well, has it just been the Ravens have played crappy quarterbacks or gotten lucky with who they played and when they played them? Is that more of like what it is than they're actually really good against quarterbacks? I don't know. Maybe it's more of that. So,
But it's kind of funny because it's like, don't start Gino if you can avoid it. But you're definitely starting the 2 receivers. So like, just know which one's going to come out, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, to me, they're like, Metcalf, I'm probably always going to just start Metcalf. Like, I don't know. That's just kind of where I'm at with like Metcalf. Always, like whenever he's in there, like I'm almost always just going to choose him just because he can have a big game. But the fact is, like, he hasn't had a big game this year. Like, we have to be honest with that. I think he's like wide receiver 40 this year. Lockett is not much better, I don't think. He's wide receiver 36. So he had a big game last week. So to you, you're starting both those guys, kind of no questions.
I think so, because I think they're just kind of like the obvious number 1 and number 2 guy, or the 1A and the 1B guy. I don't even know which one's which necessarily. Like, I'd probably rather start DK over Lockett, but I mean, Lockett's been better, so like I don't think you can go wrong with either one of them. You probably don't have both of them on your team. You probably shouldn't have both of them on your team because you don't want to start them both at the same time. But yeah, I think you're just still starting them up as basically, number 3 receivers that can totally finish as like in the top 12 any week. Just because we haven't seen it this year necessarily. Like, I think the potential is still there. Like, it's very concentrated target share and stuff for them. So I think they're hard to avoid. Yeah,
DK Metcalf did have a full practice Wednesday, did not practice Thursday, a hip injury. So I know you had that, I think, last week, which caused them to miss the game. So just keep an eye on that. But I kind of agree with you. I think Metcalf, to me, in any league is a starter if he's healthy and in there. Lockett, 2 wide receiver leagues, we can have a conversation about who you have. 3 wide receiver leagues, he's a starter. So
yeah, DK missed the game 2 weeks ago. He played last week.
Okay, it was 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, and he actually had 14 targets last week, but he only caught 5.
Oh yeah, that's right. So yeah, I mean, you can't. So many targets, it was just weird. I don't know. Their whole offense has just been weird this year. Kenneth Walker looks like is off the injury report. I'm not worried about him at all. I know a lot of people kind of are because Charbonnet was taking more. I think it was just Walker had a calf injury, didn't really practice much all week, and they just didn't want to use him. So
and they obviously didn't necessarily like, even though Charbonnet outsnapped him, it wasn't even like he outplayed him, like Walker still had 2 targets just like Charbonnet, and he actually ran for 8 rushes instead of 5 compared to Charbonnet. So it's definitely not like they were obviously limiting Walker to some extent, but they were still playing him more where it mattered.
Yeah. So just start him, even if it's a tough matchup. So
yeah.
Ravens side, like obviously Lamar's a start, Andrews a start. Zay Flowers, where are we at with Zay Flowers this week? I mean, again, I always talk about Zay Flowers where like it's funny, just like the narrative of we have with certain players. It's like everyone loves Zay Flowers. Like no one has nothing bad to say about Zay Flowers, right? But like everyone hates Drake London and they have the exact same points this year, like it's just not that they hate Drake London, but or like Calvin Ridley, and Ridley has 0.8 points less than Zay Flowers. You know what I mean? Like, but there's just this beautiful outlook on like
it's because it's just because we're still holding on to like where they were drafted, like not NFL wise, like fantasy wise, like
so like the value, you got more value out of Flowers or something.
Yeah, like I mean, like you just said, like if they all have the same amount of points, it's like, well, Ridley was going in the 3rd basically, and London was what, in the 5th maybe, and Flowers like another round or 2 after that, probably 2. Like he was probably drafted in the 7th round, so you feel like you won by getting Flowers, even though like it's like it's not really working, as far as like he's definitely not like he's very far from a must start guy, but
in PPR I'd say he's in 3 wide receiver leagues, he's definitely a must start because he's much better in PPR. Like he's only had 2 non-double digit points in PPR, double digit weeks. He's had 2 weeks of less than double digit points in PPR, so he's kind of a safer PPR play. Half PPR though, we can definitely have the conversation. Again, this week, just kind of looking at like the matchups and stuff, he's probably going to be in there. Like I would say, like, are you starting him over Puka?
I mean, that's a little tough because like if Stafford's playing, you're definitely starting Puka. But Puka's hurt right now too. So
it didn't sound very serious. Like at least the whole language behind it was just like, like there's a little knee swelling. We're just giving him some days off, kind of.
What about like? I think Rashee Rice versus Zay Flowers is kind of a more interesting conversation. Like Flowers is a little like he's playing a lot more, but obviously, like the quarterback favors Rashee Rice, so I think that's kind of an interesting conversation. I think I'd still lean Flowers there because he seems like closer to the number 1 guy. But actually, you know what? I'm gonna change my mind in a split second. I was just thinking about what you said. It's like, well, Miami, it could be a shootout. Like I'm gonna go with that.
I mean, this game could be a shootout. Seahawks, like not like a bad team necessarily. I don't think it will be, but I'd probably lean Flowers just because I know he's going to be out there more. Like I don't know if Rashee Rice is going to play more than like he could play 50% of the snaps. Probably not, but he could, I know Zay Flowers is at least going to get 70, 75%, if not more out there. So I'll lean Flowers. I think it's just a safer, maybe there's a little more upside with Rashee Rice. Like definitely a more opportunity to catch a touchdown, I'd say, but no, that is an interesting one. I'd feel more comfortable though with Flowers and kind of all or half and full PPR. What about like Godwin? Someone like Godwin who's kind of come on the last couple weeks.
Yeah, I'll start Godwin over both of those guys.
I think I still might lean Flowers. I think I still might like. Godwin's almost like a touchdown or bust guy, right? Like, not touchdown or bust, but touchdown and our new phrase, like touchdown and not happy or something like. Because we'll
workshop this one off the air.
Yeah, I mean, he's had 3 double-digit point weeks, and I think last week was his first touchdown. So the 1 week was Mike Evans left with the other 15-point game. Other than that, though, like, you're not sad, but you're not happy with his performances. So he's almost like a Rashee Rice in a way, you know?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to watch too many of my Buccaneers games this season so far, just because my daughter's baseball and stuff like that. But that is coming to an end after this week, so I'll be able to catch more games. But yeah, like, I mean, he's one of those guys. Like, I definitely like. I'm leading more Godwin over Rice just because he's out there way more often. But obviously a downgrade at quarterback, like comparing Baker to Mahomes. So, yeah, I don't know. You can kind of pick your poison there.
Well, versus Flowers, I mean.
Oh, Flowers, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that is a little bit closer. It seems like they're kind of commanding like similar targets. I
think what's interesting is, I mean, Godwin has actually averaged more points than Zay Flowers this year. So it is an interesting one for sure. But I feel like, and they both don't only have 1 touchdown. Yeah, I'd probably lean Godwin over Flowers. I think I would. You know, just again, like it is just funny just seeing like how high every week, like Zay Flowers is just up there as like wide receiver 20, wide receiver 24. I don't even know how many weeks he's finished as like a top 20 guy, you know, like maybe only a couple. So yeah, I don't know. Like, he is the number 1 guy, but he's not because of Mark Andrews. So Gus Edwards, what are we at with him? Because he feels like a Deontay Foreman guy, touchdown or bust, you know?
Yeah, kind of, I guess. Like, I don't know. It is kind of funny. Like, he's, playing 60% or less of the snaps kind of thing. I guess it kind of just depends on like what you think the game script's going to be. Like, they obviously trust him. Like, he is their like kind of their grinder, you know? Mm-hmm. I don't think, did he get 3 touchdowns last week? Oh my God. Like, I was at a wedding in Vegas, so I didn't quite get to watch a lot of this stuff. Like I just feel like they, like he is their dude. Like, I don't think we have to worry about Justice Hill. Like, I think he's easily an RB2 kind of a thing. Like, it's not going to be very involved in the passing game. Like, I think you just fire him up and don't worry about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to tell people not to start him when he had 3 touchdowns, but it was like one of those games where you're just going to get burned if you start him, like chasing because it's not like he's really done much different than what he's been doing all year. It's just the last 2 games he has touchdowns and an 80-yard catch, and he's not going to get an 80-yard catch. I'll guarantee you that. Yeah, he can get the touchdowns, but he can also not get the touchdowns, like very easily. It's more likely that if you had to put money on it, I don't know what the Vegas odds are, but I would assume that you'd get more money, a bigger payout by betting him not getting a touchdown than getting a touchdown. That's just kind of how it works with guys like that. So, that I'm just always afraid of that. Like, you could get a 16 for 60 and that's it, so there's that. But again, you look at if you go to Fantasy Pros and you look at the players below him, you're not excited about any of them, like Chuba Hubbard, Aaron Jones, who I don't think is healthy, Zach Moss, who's down to like 40% of the snaps, Darrell Henderson, who's essentially splitting with Royce Freeman, like Jerome Ford coming off an injury. Like, none of these guys I'm excited about. So yeah, I agree with you. He's basically a starter. So and then Mark Andrews, obvious start. So the last game, we got the Cardinals at the Browns. Browns are favored by 8, over under 37.5. there's really no one I want to start on the Cardinals except for Trey McBride, to be honest. Like, and even him, I'm not super like Marquise Brown. If I can avoid, I do want to avoid, like, just because Clayton Tune's the starter. Like, I'll start Demario Douglas over Marquise Brown this week. Just like, I don't know. I just think there's a better chance at Douglas doing something than Marquise Brown and Jahan Dotson.
That's kind of interesting to hear you say, because I know you don't like Mac Jones.
No,
for Demario Douglas, like, do you think
Washington's defense is
what
bad?
Do you think the odd? What's that?
No, it's just Washington's defense is bad, and they just traded their two best players on the defensive line. You know,
yeah, it's true.
They were already second worst against quarterbacks, second worst against receivers. You know, they were really nice for the passing game, essentially. So that's why, I guess. What were you gonna say though?
I was just gonna say, like, I know you don't really care for Mac Jones very much, so like, I was just gonna say, what do you think the odds are that Clayton Tune's better than Mac Jones, like this week, kind of a thing? You know, like,
yeah, probably pretty low.
Yeah,
I don't necessarily think Clayton Tune's like ready to play against Cleveland. Like, we're talking about maybe the best defense in the league. You know, like at Cleveland. Maybe there's even weather. I don't even know what the weather reports are like, but
yeah, I was going to say, Dad just did say that it snowed there in Battle Creek in Michigan, which isn't like crazy far from Cleveland. Like, it's not right next to it, but
yeah,
you know, it's only a few hours away.
I mean, Dotson, like, you wouldn't start Dotson over Marquise Brown, or you would?
I think I'm still starting Marquise Brown. Like, I don't know, like, Dotson, I don't know. I guess he has like been drawing some targets these last few weeks, but I think I'm gonna still lean with Marquise Brown.
Yeah, it's just that, again, that Cleveland defense also. I know they gave up a lot of points against the Colts and stuff, but I don't know. They do scare me a bit, and I think they kind of bounced back, if I remember. I mean, they played the Seahawks and they only gave up 24 points. So I don't know. I kind of want to get off of him, and I don't want to start DeMercado. Like, where are you at with DeMercado? I mean, again, if you need it, fine, because he did get like 20 touches last week, and it's really hard to find someone to give you 20 touches. But I don't know. Like, would you start Foreman over DeMercado or Kareem Hunt over DeMercado?
Kareem Hunt's an interesting one with the Jerome Ford injury, for sure.
But Ford played last week, so
right. But it's just kind of like
being limited,
right? So I guess gonna have to see where that goes. I don't know. That backfield, I feel like it's like, I feel like they don't exactly know what to do. Like, I know DeMercado was the dude last week, and the week before, I thought there was someone else like eating into him a little bit. Was it
It was
Damian Williams?
What happened?
He went on practice squad IR. That was a thing.
Yeah, what happened was it was the week when everyone spent a bunch of money on DeMercado, and then he did nothing. And then the next week, after maybe a lot of people dropped him after spending a lot of money, he had all the touches. And then last week he had all the touches. So I think it's his backfield until Connor comes back. So that's why I'm saying, like, it's hard to pass up the last 2 weeks, 13 carries, 5 targets, 4 catches, 20 carries and a catch. You know, like, it's hard to pass up 20 potential touches, like, but it's against Cleveland. So,
but I mean, just rewind back to the last, what we just said about Gus Edwards. And it's like, he's on a way better offense in a situation kind of like that. Like, he might not get 20, but it's like, I don't know. Like, I just feel like we're talking about like someone who's like, oh man, like you said too, like, he's playing Cleveland's defense. I don't know. Like, we haven't seen, like, his involvement in the passing game was very hit or miss. DeMarcado, so it's kind of like
Mhm.
I don't know. I don't think I'm gonna try and avoid him. Low end
I mean,
flex.
would you start him over Deontay Foreman, Damian Pierce, who he might be injured, but Deontay Foreman, would you start him over?
I don't know. That's kind of tough too because I feel like their matchups are both kind of tough.
Yeah.
No, I think I'm going to start DeMarcado because it looks like he has a little more control of his backfield with Roshan back in Chicago. So I'm going to kind of try and hold off and see what goes on there.
Yeah. Basically, everyone above him on Fantasy Pros, I'd start over DeMarcado. It is a tough one though. So it's to me he's like that flex, but there's going to be probably better options at receiver than DeMarcado. I guess we can spend a little bit of time there. Like same. Let's see, Michael Thomas or DeMarcado. You want the safe 8 points, or do you want whatever DeMarcado is going to give you, the wild card?
Yeah, I'll take what's in the box. What's behind door number 2? I'll take DeMarcado.
Okay. Unless you need safe points or something. Jeez. Yeah, it's so hard. Demario Douglas or DeMarcado. What would you do there?
Mario Douglas. Oh, yeah. I have to keep reminding me. I was like, who is this guy? It's the Patriots guy.
Yeah.
I don't like that. Yeah, I guess I'll go to Mario Douglas.
Yeah, that one's hard. We'll see. I mean, again, Clayton Tune running this offense, it just could be a kind of a shit show, Trey McBride, unless you have, I'm fine with starting Trey McBride. I mean, he was tight end 1 last week. Unless you have someone better, aka like Kelsey, Andrews, Hawkinson, Kincaid, Goddard, Kyle Pitts, like those are kind of the only for sure guys I'd start over him. Like if you have like Ferguson or Schultz, I guess because of the matchup and the situation, you can go those guys. I don't know. Do you agree with that? Like if you have if you have Ferguson and McBride or Schultz and McBride, you just kind of go with better quarterback, better matchup type of situation.
Yeah, probably start those other guys. But yeah, I don't know. Like he's definitely a good one to have on your bench. McBride is.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I mean, yeah. Like you can't. Dude had like 14 targets. Like how many tight ends had 14 targets this year? Probably very few. But I don't carry 2 tight ends in general, so I'm just, I'm not dropping McBride to take on Ferguson or Schultz if they're out there. I'm just sticking with McBride, and maybe I have a bad week, but he could also just have like 7 catches this week for whatever he gets in yards because Clayton Tune just leans on him, So, Brown side, I don't even know if they're I think they might start DTR. I don't even know what's going on there. Like Watson was practicing. It's so hard because we don't even know what they're gonna do. Like I don't know if they're starting PJ Walker. Let's just say DTR is the quarterback. Are you just avoiding every pass catcher on this team?
Not Kareem Hunt.
Okay. Kareem Hunt. Yeah, I think Kareem Hunt's
well, actually, I don't know if I'm avoiding him.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I'd say Amari Cooper too. Like, I mean, the dude's out there all the time. Like, he hasn't been pretty.
Mm-hmm.
Like a couple of duds, but very definitely startable in what is this? 4 of his last 6 games. So, I think you got to throw him out there.
If they have a successful passing game, Cooper will do well. That's just, if they throw for even 200 yards, Cooper will do well, Like, if they don't, Cooper's going to have a bad game. Like, so I hope it's PJ Walker, not Dorian Thompson-Robinson, but it is the Cardinals, so maybe that's something. I'm starting Cooper, probably not even questioning it. I don't really, not even caring who the quarterback is, even if it is DTR. Everyone else, though, I'm avoiding, like Njoku, who's had a couple good games, if I can, that is. I think I've been trying to not start Elijah more in our league, but I can't not start him because there's no one better, it feels like. So, I don't know. I'm off of him. Kareem Hunt, I think, is a start. I don't think it's any question there. With Kareem Hunt, it's a little bit of a question if Ford is completely off the injury report, but I think he's still limited. Yeah, he's still limited, so I'm probably just going to throw Kareem Hunt in there.
Yeah.
Anything else with this game? I mean, it's so hard to talk about him when we don't know who the quarterback is.
Yeah, no, not really. I mean, I don't think there's anything to talk about, even if we did know who the quarterback is. Like,
yeah.
Like Njoku, like you can throw him out there, like why not? Kind of a thing. Like he's been drawing some targets, 3 out of the last 4 games with at least 7 targets. So, like if PJ Walker is the quarterback, then I think he's basically a must start tight end, low end number 1 guy.
Yeah. Like if you picked up Njoku because you want to roll with them, just roll with them. Like if you have. I don't know. If you have like Dalton Schultz or Ferguson and Njoku, then go with those guys this week until there's some stability there, I guess. But yeah, what's crazy is like Cleveland's still doing well. Like they just need a damn quarterback. They had Josh Dobbs, but anyways, yeah, I think that's it. It's a tough week, man. Like we have to talk a lot about things because there's all these backup quarterbacks. It just makes it so hard.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, we'll wrap it up there. Be back with 4 more games, and as always, like and subscribe, and catch you guys next time.